You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, OTAs, finito. We are done. There's just about, 5 weeks, 6 weeks between now and training camp. Lots to look forward to, including a word from our sponsor.
Yeah, and if you want to get ready for the season like the Packers are doing these upcoming weeks, getting ready for training camp, well, you should visit theticketking.com. That is our show, once again, sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King for over 30 years. Ticket King has been providing Packer tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. That's also upcoming here in the Milwaukee area. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com. That's theticketking.com, or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember to support local Wisconsin businesses. And if you're watching with us on YouTube right now, hopefully through the Google outage, there's some weird internet stuff going on, it seems like, across the country. Hopefully you're tuned in on YouTube and Facebook. You can see the link right there, theticketking.com, and you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Network here on YouTube. Click on the bell, turn the notifications on, join the discussion, chat with Gil and us live. We'd love to see and talk about the comments coming our way, even if they're internet issues or no internet issues. Somehow we're going to get the product to you, Gil. Yeah,
we're going to get it done one way or the other. And, hopefully we don't have any real hiccups, and kind of an exciting time. We're getting to the lull before the storm here, but we're getting to that point in the off season where we're getting close.
Yeah, we are. And you mentioned hiccups, and hopefully the Packers won't have a major hiccup coming up, especially in the cornerback room this offseason or this upcoming season. You probably heard by now, but Monday, the big news dropped. Packers cutting ties with Jaire Alexander. His future with the team was kind of in limbo going forward, mainly because he's only played half the games the last 4 years since signing that lucrative contract extension back in 2021, and seemed like the Packers and him were at odds. It didn't seem like they could come together on a restructured contract, so they cut him right before mandatory minicamp open up. So the Packers and Jaire parting ways, Gil. You have right now your top corners are Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, newcomer Nate Hobbs. Is this cornerback group in trouble?
If there are injuries, here's the thing. I think talent-wise, they've got 4 guys who are pretty good. The 2 things I'm concerned about is there one standout guy? There's no elite guy. Mm-hmm. That's number 1. And then number 2, if injuries do hit this group, is there enough depth? Those are my 2 big questions concerning this cornerback room. Now, I have a lot of faith that Jeff Hafley can sort of maneuver around this as well as anybody, but I don't want him to have to do that. I want him to have choices and options and maximize, what this defense can do.
It's kind of funny how a couple of years ago, back in 2023, the Packers cornerback room looked like it was in really good shape overall. They even traded away a good veteran in Rasul Douglas because of the depth at cornerback. And the safety group was terrible. Essentially, that whole room, except for Zane Anderson, they were not on the 2024 team. They all parted ways with the Packers after that 2023 season. And now it's the other way around, where on paper, the cornerback room doesn't look like it's great right now. But I'll say this, Gil, in my opinion, I think our cornerback situation is better than people think. Now, Jaire Alexander makes this team way better. He makes this group way, way better. I do firmly believe that. But Jaire Alexander's missed a lot of time, and the Packers have been able to get through without him for the most part. And I'm telling you, the cornerback group, it could be the best cornerback group in the NFL. It could be the worst cornerback group in the NFL. It will not matter, because it's a team game. Football is such a team game. It will not matter if that pass rush doesn't improve this year.
Yeah, and it maybe even puts more pressure on the pass rush because, there's less margin for error if you don't have confidence in your corners. It's one thing to say, okay, you're going to cover Justin Jefferson. You need to stay with him for 3.5 seconds. And it's something else if it's 5 seconds. And the longer the pass rush doesn't get there, the more dangerous those receivers get, and the more you can be exposed if you don't have the cornerbacks that you need to get the job done.
We saw in the playoffs last year, and Gil, we've mentioned this many times this offseason, where those corners were in coverage for 5-6 seconds because the Packers could not get to Jalen Hurts with 4 guys, and they decided to drop guys back in coverage, which makes sense with Jalen Hurts' running ability and everything like that. I don't care who it is, what corner it is. It could be prime Richard Sherman out there. It could be prime Charles Woodson out there. There aren't any corners in the NFL who can hold coverage usually for 5, 6, 7 seconds. It's just receivers are going to find an opening, and the quarterbacks are going to get the ball to those receivers if they have that much time. And it just happened too many times in the playoffs last year, and you saw it too many times against the really good teams in the NFL, against Detroit, against Minnesota last year. You know, there were just countless times where these cornerbacks were just in coverage for way too long, and I think that was really a problem. So, yeah, I do agree where I think that the pass rush is under pressure for sure. I think you're going to see Edgerrin Cooper get unleashed quite a bit too. You hope so, just to get a little bit more of a presence on the front lines and in the pass rush maybe. But, yeah, it won't matter if that pass rush doesn't improve this year.
It won't. And then, you know, I look at this group, and I mentioned there are 4 guys who I am fairly confident in. You got Keyshawn Nixon, you got Nate Hobbs, Carrington Valentine, and Javon Bullard, who plays, you know, nickel or slot. To me, number one, injuries hit and you're in trouble. But then number 2, like so many of those players, you think you know, but you don't know how good they can be. Like Keyshawn Nixon in coverage, if you look at his statistics, last year was his career best year in coverage.
Yep.
And my question is, was that just a good year, or is that the new normal, or can he even improve on those numbers? We don't know. Carrington Valentine, he showed flashes. He's shown some playmaking ability and some physicality, but he hasn't done it consistently yet. Can he take a third-year jump and improve his game? There's just, you know, Javon Bullard, rough in coverage at times last year, real good near the line of scrimmage. Is he ready to take a step forward? And then you put all those 4 things together and you realize there's a lot more questions than answers right now.
There sure is. And guess what? If Keyshawn Nixon, if he can improve or have a similar season in coverage like he did last year, man, they're getting pennies on the dollar for a true top corner. But like you said, Gil, we just don't know. And the big question marks, though, after that, where we've heard about the reports are that Kamal Hadden, he's had a really solid OTAs in minicamp. Kalen King, he took a redshirt year as a rookie last year, 7th-round pick out of Penn State in 2024, after he was projected to be a 1st-round pick during his time with the Nittany Lions. And it's interesting if those guys play as well on the field when it really matters as they do on the practice field, then that adds some quality depth there too. Obviously, Eric Stokes, we felt like we had something last year with him around this time where he was having a really good offseason, and only to show that he just doesn't really have it anymore. And I hope for good things for Eric Stokes with the Raiders. Absolutely. I hope he does. I hope he resurrects his career, and I hope he gets back to his ways as with how quality of a player he was as a rookie. But you're gonna be asking a lot of some young guys, and then Micah Robinson was a 7th-round pick. Gil, you got to think that the Packers were thinking that they were going to part ways with Jaire Alexander even at draft time. Are you more disappointed now, or what's your feelings now that the Packers didn't draft a corner this past April, knowing that this was potentially going to happen, which the release of Jaire Alexander, which happened on Monday?
Yeah, it's a tough one because you needed that go-to wide receiver. You needed, you know, and there were so many other needs to address. And, you know, the thing I think I'm disappointed about the most when you break it down is the way we as fans and as members of the media kind of got teased. It was like, okay, he's out. No, he's not coming back. Wait, there's a chance. wait, we're talking, we're negotiating this, and if he just agrees, we'll give him this restructured deal. Was that posturing? Was that PR? How close were they really? They got our hopes up the way this sort of played out through the media and then dashed it. And I think it would have been easier if in February or at the draft they either cut him or traded him or did something rather than riding this emotional roller coaster where he's gone, no, he's not. And then you had, Jordan Love and Xavier McKinney. Oh, we really want to keep him. It just got to be such a big thing. And I think fans in the end ended up disappointed. And the reports were, and with the media, this is a big fight between, it seemed like with the Packers beat guys, the guys who are on the ground every day, guys from The Athletic and Sports Illustrated, ESPN, all those Packer beat guys that you probably get a lot of updates for. We get a lot of updates from them too. And they're essentially messengers. They're listening to their sources and that's it. And they're reporting what they're hearing. And it seemed to be a big fight between those media members and the fans. And the media, they wouldn't say they won, but they did win, where it's like they were right, where it seemed like a split was coming and the inevitable, which was what happened on Monday, did happen. And the reports were that Jaire, the Packers tried to structure a deal where it would essentially be a one-year deal coming up where essentially he could hit the free agency market after this season. So this year would be a contract year. Obviously, they were far apart in talks. I'm very curious to see where, as of recording right now, Jaire Alexander hasn't signed with anybody. Currently, he has a lot of interest, which I'm not surprised about. But it's a matter of, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens contract-wise with Jaire Alexander. And that begs the next question, Gil, that I have is the Packers have some extra money to play around with now because of this Jaire post-June 1 cut where they have freed up a lot of money. Brian Gutekunst said on Monday they've moved the cap around a little bit. That's more of Russ Ball's wheeling and dealing that's happening right now with that extra money. What do the Packers do with the extra money after this Jaire release? Because I feel like there are definitely options on the table. Here's the thing. There's a lot of money right now for 2025, but you need a lot of money for 2026. And that's where my concern is. What I would like to see, if they do use this money in some way, I'm thinking of like a one-year deal where they bring in maybe a veteran cornerback, and say, okay, you're 30, 31, whatever, come in. If you have one good year left, we're there. If you do well, we'll talk about extending you to next year. But to me, use the money for this year, but don't use it up because you got to pay Zach Tom. Yep. You got to pay possibly Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson. You've got Rasheed Walker. You've got Sean Ryan. And then Jordan Love's cap hit goes way up. Now they could always restructure it or extend it or whatever, but that money isn't just sitting there. You're going to need the money for 2026. So my thought is get a veteran cornerback in here on a one-year deal, maybe find another, if you need a reinforcement at another position, go for it, but keep that money focused on this season because you're going to need it for 2026. Yeah, and you mentioned veteran corners, guys like Asante Samuel Jr., Stephon Gilmore, old friend Rasul Douglas. They're still available on the free agency market, and the Packers don't like to sign guys in their 30s and the back end of their career. But this is the time to go bargain bin hunting and see if you can get someone on a cheap one-year deal, like you said, Gil. Remember, it's around this time in 2021 when the Packers got Devondre Campbell, and Campbell went on to have an all-pro season in 2021. It's by far his best NFL season. He earned a big contract. Obviously, was released a few years later. Jalen Ramsey I know he's available in trade talks. The Miami Dolphins definitely want to move on from him, but that's not going to happen because he's got a big contract right now. The only way that Jalen Ramsey gets moved, I feel like, is the Dolphins have to release him. And I don't see him coming to Green Bay. I like the idea of Jalen Ramsey coming to Green Bay, but that's just a pipe dream.
obviously you have the Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati, where he doesn't seem like he's going to be back with the Bengals. And obviously there's a lot of issues there. And yeah, it'd be easy to say like, oh, let's just make a trade and then sign him to an extension. Well, guess what? Like you said, Gil, 2026, there's going to be a lot of money that they're going to have to pay, a lot of money that they have to commit to. But I'm with you. You mentioned Zach Tom getting an extension. I think that's the very first order of business with this extra money is get him locked up right away. He is arguably your best offensive lineman. And then also figure out the Elton Jenkins situation. If you can get that restructure, if you can find a way to make him happy, make both sides happy, get those two, get the big boys, get your best offensive lineman locked up immediately, and then deal with the rest after that.
Yeah, and then you could do your minor tweaks. And look, I think the Elton Jenkins thing can be a win-win because you can lower his cap hit for this year and extend him and give him a little bit more money up front and a little bit more security for 2026. And that would be a win-win. So, and then Zach Tom, I think the sooner you get a deal done, the less it costs you in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. And I got to say, too, where you mentioned Rasheed Walker, and I'm still not – I like Rasheed Walker. I like him a lot as a left tackle, but I'm telling you, if Jordan Morgan, if he performs well in training camp and shows that he can handle that left tackle job, Rasheed Walker is an interesting piece to dangle in trade talks. And it would be very nice to have two guys who could play left tackle because not a lot of NFL teams even have one guy who could play left tackle in the NFL. So if the Packers had the luxury too, but knowing Rasheed Walker, this is a contract year that he's entering. And if he's not starting, he may want to get moved too, just for his personal sake, so he can go get paid. And
you need a swing tackle, though. You still would need a swing tackle. Are you ready to commit to a rookie second-round draft pick as your swing tackle? If that's the case, because I'm not.
And I think that's where training camp's going to be really interesting. And I think that's where Brian Gutekunst, you got to think that front office is possibly thinking about this, where if they feel like Jordan Morgan could take over at left tackle, and if they feel like Anthony Belton is more ready as a rookie than expected, and he's more ahead of it, and he could play as a swing tackle or as a back, he could play in at guard if need be. You got Zach Tom, Rasheed Walker, and Sean Ryan are all entering contract years. You're not going to be able to keep all those guys, unfortunately. They're all good offensive linemen. Zach Tom's priority number one, but Rasheed Walker being a left tackle, and he's played left tackle pretty well for the most part, he could be an interesting trade piece where that could lead to a potential deal. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but a potential deal for a Trey Hendrickson or a TJ Watt, who's also hasn't been reporting to minicamp in Pittsburgh right now because of a contract standoff. So there are options there. It's just, this is where you got to just trust Russ Ball and what he's doing, and you hope the Packers can make something work. Remember, Packers are very close to making a deal for Khalil Mack years ago when the Bears essentially made that deal because they thought they would get better draft compensation, better overall draft picks than what the Packers would be able to give them if the Packers got Khalil Mack. So, and the Raiders were right. I mean, the Raiders were definitely right, So, but you never know. It's like Brian Gutekunst was in those talks. Maybe he's going to be in some other talks coming up in a few months.
We shall see. Look, the one thing I do have to say about Brian Gutekunst, and I like him, he never stops trying to improve the roster, whether it's July or August or January or anything in between. He's always open to signing new players. The bottom 10 spots on that roster can turn at a dime.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. And you talk about the roster and the fluidity of the roster. This is a good time of year to get guys learning other positions. And Bill Patsis in the chat section on YouTube saying, let Bo Melton learn the cornerback position. Could be a great story. Well, guess what, Bill, we're going to talk about Bo Melton right now. He was seen doing some work with the DBs in minicamp this week. Obviously, Bo Melton has played he's played only receiver in the NFL. But the Packers, Brian Gutekunst, they said they love Melton's play on special teams. Coaches are open to seeing him on defense as he was doing some drills and work with the corners during minicamp this week. His brother, Max Melton, is a corner for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Bo Melton did say this week he's not switching to corner. He's just cross-training. And this isn't related to Jaire's release at all earlier this week, but kind of bad optics for fans overall. Just saying like, oh, what's the play at corner? Oh, we're going to move a receiver to corner right now. Yeah, good luck. But Gil, let me ask you this. Are we going to actually see Bo Melton get some snaps at cornerback, whether it's preseason or regular season? Are we going to see this possibly coming up in a few months, Bo Melton actually getting some run on D?
I think we'll see it in training camp. And then how well he does in training camp and maybe at some of those joint practices will determine whether or not he does preseason, and if he does well there, whether or not he goes regular season. But look, let's face it. We broke down 4 guys who would automatically be ahead of him on the depth chart. Mm-hmm. You've got your 7th round pick, Robinson, probably, more experienced at the position. I would think it's a long shot for him. Yeah, he played it in high school, but there's a big gap between playing cornerback in high school and playing it in the NFL. So I'm a big Bo Melton fan. I've always liked what he brought to the table, his hard work, his attitude, his skill set. But to expect him to be an NFL cornerback right away, probably asking a lot. If it helps him make the team, I'd be happy to see him stay. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a long shot that he sees actual game time. Maybe if you're winning or losing by 30 points late in the game and it's garbage time, you want to give him a shot. But with a game on the line, I think it's a long shot. What do you think?
Well, this is interesting because I think he's seeing this as an opportunity where coaches, the back end of the roster, they're going to choose guys who can play special teams, who you could trust on special teams, which the Packers do with Bo Melton on special teams. And you need corner depth. He may be on the outside looking in at receiver. And it's just an intriguing story. And I really hope he actually gets some true run at corner, whether it's in training camp practices. I'm hoping we see him in a preseason game play a little bit of corner. That would be awesome. And guess what? Guys who were formerly receivers switching to corner, it's nothing new, and vice versa. I mean, you got to think Travis Hunter. I know he's the number 2 overall pick out of Colorado. He's with Jacksonville, Heisman Trophy winner. He's a wide receiver in corner. The Jaguars are still trying to figure out where to put him full time this upcoming season. If you remember, Charles Woodson, he played both ways in college. Obviously, a Hall of Fame talent. Chris Gamble at The Ohio State University was also playing both ways in college. He was also, though, a corner primarily his entire NFL career. Richard Sherman was a wide receiver for a short time in college before switching to quarterback. Devin Hester was a corner. He was a special teams guy, but he was a corner, and he got some run at receiver later in his career. Sam Shields, remember him? Sam Shields, great player for the Green Bay Packers, was a wide receiver a majority of his career in college at the University of Miami. Got switched to corner, turned out to be a pretty darn good NFL cornerback. And then NFL Network analyst, former Packer Bucky Brooks was a wide receiver all throughout college, and then he switched to defensive back, and that guy was a second-round pick coming out of college too. So this isn't anything new. I think the big difference here, though, is how deep Bo Melton is in his NFL career in comparison to these other guys. But it's not abnormal to see something like this happening at this point in the offseason.
Right. It's not abnormal in June.
Yeah.
In October, that may be a whole different animal.
Yeah, and I'm just rooting for it. And if Bo Melton can make the team, I would love that. I would love to see that. Right now, it's just I feel like he's wide receiver 7. He's got to win that wide receiver 6 job to even get a shot. And it's going to come down to who's better on special teams. But if he could play a little bit of corner too and be a deep part of the depth part of that cornerback group, then yeah, it's going to be hard to let that guy loose on the market. Speaking of roster depth, roster acquisitions, the Packers signed defensive tackle Cameron Young earlier this week, a former 4th-round pick in the 2023 draft by the Seattle Seahawks. 6'3", 304 pounds. He's played 17 games in his first 2 NFL seasons, has 18 total tackles, a tackle for loss, and a QB hit in his NFL career. And with this, Gil, this is specifically bringing in extra competition at defensive tackle. You got to think Kenny Clark, Carl Brooks, and Devontae Wyatt, they're probably the only locks to make the team in 2025 at defensive tackle. So you bring in this guy to compete with guys like Colby Wooden, rookies Warren Brinson, and Nazir Stackhouse. Could be an interesting camp battle coming up.
Yeah, could be. And look, there's probably 1 or 2 spots after those top 3. How are you going to fill them? you need to find that balance between run stuffers and pass rushers. And it'll be interesting to see how Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley figure this out.
Robin Weber tuning in from Portugal. Wow, man, I would love to be in Portugal right now, but thank you for tuning in, Robin. If you have any other comments, if you think I need a shave, if you think Gil needs to add a mustache or something like that, just let us know. We're open to all kinds of suggestions, not just for our Packers talk. So it's going to be an interesting camp battle, though. Cameron Young in there, and hey, if competition brings out the best in people, we're going to have some really good training camp competitions, whether it be on the offensive line, at defensive tackle, at cornerback, and wide receiver too. There's going to be some really riveting stuff to keep an eye on in training camp coming up this summer.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, training camp, like we said, about 5 weeks away. We're getting into sort of the quietest part of the off season coming up, but I can't wait. And there's a lot of battles. Slot is going to be a battle. Backup running back is going to be a battle. The offensive line is filled with different uncertainties, especially depending on what happens with Elton Jenkins. So there's a lot to watch right now.
And Gil, with a lot to watch coming up, but with the slow part of the offseason coming up, what articles do you have coming up on Packers Post, Cheesehead TV for people to, eat some time, get that Packer fandom, and, get that Packers fix for people online reading what you got cooking?
Well, on the Packers Post, I took a look at some of the key stories coming out of OTAs, which wrapped up today on Thursday. And a little bit of the fallout on the Jaire Alexander situation. And for Cheesehead, next man up with Jaire not there is Keyshawn Nixon. And I talked about the fact that his career trajectory changes a lot based on what happens to him this season.
And Gil, maybe we should write an article about how you should grow a mustache, because Robin Weber said a stash never fails. So there you go. Put that razor away and get those whiskers growing, Gil. So you ready for some trivia? Enough.
I am ready for the trivia.
Okay, sounds good. Let's get right to it. Well, the news of the week, again, big one on Monday. Jaire Alexander, Brian Gutekunst's first overall ever draft pick as GM of the Green Bay Packers. He's no longer a Green Bay Packer after a bit of a turbulent past couple seasons with Green Bay. The Packers released Jaire on Monday, right before mandatory minicamp. So another familiar face has left 1265 Lombardi Avenue for now. Gil, who are the only 3 Packers on the team today who were members of head coach Matt LaFleur's first season in 2019?
Okay. Kenny Clark would be one. Yeah, that's a good question. Wow.
Because there's not a lot of old guys on this team. There's not.
No, there are not.
Just think 2019 NFL draft. Think that.
Think draft. Okay.
Think draft picks in 2019.
Got it. Oh boy.
It was the same offseason that the Packers signed the Smith brothers, Adrian Amos.
Okay. So, yep. As soon as you say that, Rashawn Gary was there.
Yep.
And then the other one would have to be Elton Jenkins.
Those are the 3 right there. Elton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, and Kenny Clark. Gary and Jenkins were the Packers' first 2 draft picks of the Matt LaFleur era. 2 pretty darn good picks, if you ask me. And Kenny Clark, he's the longest tenured Packer, entering his 10th NFL season with the Green Bay Packers. So hopefully it's only going to be a matter of years until those guys are gone too. And I hope they're around for a while. I hope Kenny Clark has a resurgence. Hopefully Rashawn Gary can get better. And Robin also, Robin's in Portugal, so I'm just going to keep mentioning her. She said she's sad to see Jaire go. Feels like the base of the past few years has gone completely. NFL stands for not for long, Robin. It does, for a reason. It's not National Football League. It's not for long.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the nature of the beast. Competition never ending. You can't afford to slip up. So
that's why I firmly believe players never tank, because they always have a job that they're fighting for. Coaches, I don't feel like they tank either. Front offices try to tank, but players and coaches never tank. They never do. That's just my firm opinion.
Very, very true. All right, that is it for today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at update on all things Packers, or to ask us questions, or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show. Thank you for listening. Till next time, go Pack Go!
Go Pack Go!